You're listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro-AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Hello, everybody, and happy Wednesday. If it is Wednesday, it is another episode of the AV-IT Amplifier. I am your host, Ryan Gray, and we are back with your good friend and mine, Chris Hewitt, from well up north of where I am. Chris, thank you for coming back for week 2 and not being too intimidated to return for another episode.
It's 9:30 in the morning where I am. I'm just about an hour outside of Toronto, Canada. For those who are not familiar with where Canada is, I'm 50 miles north of Buffalo. So there you go. Buffalo, New York.
You go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sunny and cold. It's we're almost into February here when we're recording. So the lake's almost freezing over. Ready to go ice fishing. That's what's going on up here.
But I bet it's glorious in the summer.
It is just as hot as pretty much New York City is in the summer. So, we get into the high 90s. If we break 100, it's a miracle. But, in the winter, we're down at minus 20 Fahrenheit. That's, it can get pretty cool.
Okay.
Right now, it's a nice day out. So it's, we're talking about mid 30s kind of thing. So, yeah, we've got some snow on the ground. Lots of fun. Yeah.
Well, I do have some questions for you for this episode, but I wanted to start with, so I'm in rural Arizona. You're outside, you're north of Toronto. How on earth would we have ever met or know each other in any way?
Well, that's a loaded question right there because, everybody in AV knows everybody. So, I think trade shows are the big thing. Infocom, if you can get to it, get to it. If you have to beg, borrow, steal to get there, get there. That's the best advice I have is it opens people's eyes up to how big this industry is. And just in higher ed alone, with HETMA, that's bringing a lot of people together. I mean, I heard someone, I think it was Joe Way, that said the first day of Infocom with the booth, he had 2,500 new registrations or badge scans or something like that at the HETMA booth. I was like, oh my gosh, there's 2,500 people here that are associated with HETMA. Wow, that's incredible. I want to know them all. As an extrovert, I'm like, I need to know them all. I need to connect with them. Let's go.
Like the numbers associated with that booth it's like the size of a fish that you caught. You know what I'm saying? The numbers get big. But there were tons of badge scans. We were in the top 10 highest badge scanning booths at Infocom last year.
Right.
In a 20 by 20 booth in the back versus the badge scan, say at Crestron or those giant
or
ones.
Sony.
So,
or
Sony. So that was kind of like the power of people wanting to come together. We had nothing to sell anybody in that booth. We had nothing to offer other than other people to talk with and collaborate with and get to know.
Now, you talk about selling things out of a booth. I mean, we were selling HETMA membership, if you will, right?
Yeah.
And that I think is probably the most expensive. The most expensive proposition out there is putting your name to something and actually wanting to be there. So that's invaluable.
Cool. And whenever anybody said like selling HETMA membership, I would like to be clear about what the recurring cost of a HETMA membership is.
0 minus 0 equals 0.
0.
Right?
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's free.
From Joe in BC. And now that we've dropped Joe's name, we have to tag him. Whatever that guy.
No, I'm surprised he's not popping in here trying to take over your whole podcast too.
Yeah,
right?
except he's in it's 8 hours ahead in Barcelona where we have to. Never mind. Okay.
8 hours for you, 6 for me. Yeah, let's wake him up.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, free and always will be is the tagline that goes along with that, and I think that's important. So, you actually, so maybe you do know my questions because you use the standard first question. You already use one of the words, which is, do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Well, exactly. I am a hyper extrovert. So, off the scale extrovert. I love to talk to people. I get energized from that. At the end of a trade show, I am so excited. I want to tell everybody everything I saw. I want to, and the funniest thing is, if it's Orlando or it's Vegas, it doesn't matter to me. It's the excitement of getting to be with people who are like-minded, maybe not as extroverted as I am. Like last year, seeing you there, I'm like, now I know that Molly was going to come. So where's Molly? Oh, there's Molly. I can tell because she's just like, she's like stunned, and it was amazing. I came up, I go, Molly, nice to meet you, Molly. I'm Chris, and she's like, creepy white guy, what is going on here? Because you've mentioned you've had her on the show before, right?
Yep.
Like she's an HR person, so it's like an extrovert coming up to an HR person who knows who they are. That's not creepy at all. I mentioned this. I mentioned that to my partner Lydia, and she's like, "Yeah, you're a little too much, Chris." And Lydia's an introvert.
Right.
So yin and yang, right? So it was funny. Yeah.
That's awesome. And the welcome that Molly, my wife, who, is a favorite of this show, and the number of people who mentioned having heard her and asking her questions about, that her episodes was awesome. And it's so cool,
absolutely.
like you said, for people from outside AV to come to something like that and see, not just the size and the scale, but also, like you said, the connections, the family. You can walk. After just a few years of really saying I want to be connected to this, I can walk that show floor end to end and see people that I know from all over the world in all kinds of different roles, and I don't think that's replicable in a lot of other ways. So I want to take your answer and tie back to something, which is, so at my college. AV is organized under IT, and now is one area that I have as kind of the number 2 person in IT. But one of the things, so I often talk about myself as being sort of the odd extrovert that works in an IT department, where there is a lot of there coders and people who sit behind computers all day because that is how they get energy. So how has being, as you said, an extreme extrovert affected your career in choosing what you want to work on in technology?
Well, I've always had this customer service persona, if you will. It's something I'm passionate about. Over the life of my career, I've worked for Fortune 50 companies before. I've worked in the broader public sector as well. It's always have the end user in mind, and you'll never go wrong, right? So for me as an extrovert, it's talking through what they're experiencing, trying to, I am an empath at heart, so I try to feel people's emotions, right? I can almost feel what they're feeling, So when something's not working and they're frustrated, I can say to them, I can see how that can be frustrating, and I want to make this better for you. Because I truly do. And I believe in my heart of hearts that I am going to make it better for them. So throughout my career, I started doing, call center support. I was doing a call center. I could actually develop relationships with the end customer really, really quickly, and just put them at ease, right? Just come to them as a person. That hasn't really changed throughout my career. I can still do that. I do that with the people who directly report to me. Yeah. To my own detriment sometimes, but it's it's one of those things that if you can navigate people as a, how do you put it? If you can navigate people's relationship with you in a way that is complementary and is a win-win for both, it's important, right? It really is important that you're able to help people along with their journey and their struggles, so that it's beneficial for you, it's beneficial for them, and you're on that common goal to help the end customer, if you will. And that's why I've always been great at support.
Yeah.
It's just you dive in with both feet, you get wet. So, yeah.
And like we said in the last one, we need people. We need professionals who think people before packets, and
Absolutely.
and can put that forward. Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so what was your first job?
Besides throwing newspapers at people's
Really?
doorsteps.
So
I
that would
did
make you
when I
the
was-
third guest on the show that had newspaper thrower as their first
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, so newspaper delivery as my first job where I was paid-ish
Yep.
a little bit.
Okay.
I worked for
And
a parks
question,
department. Yeah.
Where were you doing that?
Okay, so truthfully, I'm not from the Toronto area originally. I am from
Okay.
Montreal. So growing up in the West Island of Montreal, predominantly English-speaking area of Montreal, but I am fluent in English and French. So yeah, it was doing that, throwing newspapers once a week for the little, we called it the rag. It's the newspaper that you put down so your dog could piddle on the floor. So yeah.
You get it. How in Montreal winters? How do you deliver or throw newspapers when there's 8 feet stacked snow and the cars are all under snowbanks?
Same way you would do it any other place. You
Just
make
really
your way up to the
uncomfortably
porch
cold.
and hoof it. Yeah.
Man.
Hey, it's cold. You're wearing your snowsuit, right? You're wearing your snow pants and your winter jacket. You got your toque on. There's a Canadianism for you. It's a toque.
Okay.
It's a winter hat with a pom-pom on top. Yep.
Okay. And
Yep.
and flaps for ear flaps or no ear flaps on a toucan?
Neck warmer. You got to have the neck
Got
warmer.
it.
It's just like you're going skiing, right? You're going to
Yeah.
go skiing out in Aspen or Vail or whatever. Just bundle up the same way.
That was
Just go outside and walk. Yeah.
I've always thought that I know you're from Canada, but if I didn't, your accent doesn't give it away. Except that when you just said
Until I say about or a.
you just said it's just like you're going skiing, and the way that you're going skiing came out, I was like, there
Going
it was.
skiing.
There it
Yeah.
was a little, skiing
Yeah.
is how we would say it. Nice.
Skiing. Yeah.
Skiing.
Yeah. So
is there?
there's lots of euphemisms like that.
Yeah. Is there anything about that job that still informed? Like, what lessons did that first job bring you that you still use today?
Wow. Hard work. It doesn't matter what time of day, you still got to get the newspaper delivered. You have to get it done. And when it's really cold out, the job sucks.
Yeah.
The same way that, if your network is, got some jitter or, you got some network dropouts happening, it sucks. Some days are harder than others. Some days are really easy, and take those ones as check. Let's go next, right? So it's really important.
I love that. Yeah, when the weather's bad on the network, you still got to deliver the paper. When the weather's good on the
Exactly.
network, enjoy a beautiful
Packets still
stroll
gotta
down
get
the
delivered.
street. Yeah,
Absolutely. Sit
I
back
love
and
that.
put your feet up. Absolutely.
I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
That is 100% now how I'm going to when I see our network administrator. That's how I'm going to. What's the weather on the network today? How do we feel? Blustery?
Oh, boy.
Is it whatever? I like that.
They're going to start
concept.
rolling their eyes at you, Ryan.
I know. What's the
It's-
forecast? Forecast for next week? We got
Yeah, you got a 50% chance of getting it right. Yeah, Just
Exactly.
like every other weather person. Yeah.
That's pretty good. I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
my favorite
Yeah.
question. Do you believe people are generally good with a proclivity for evil, or generally evil with a proclivity for good?
I think people are good, and sometimes they want to take it the wrong way or read into things that you say or do things to stir the pot. I'm the first one to stir the pot.
Yeah.
But I think people are generally good with a proclivity for evil when it suits them. People can be malicious. I don't think they have it in their nature to always be malicious, right? People like you think about when a baby's born, everything's great, everything's and then all the fears get instilled into them through their parents,
Right.
So, or whatever
that's a-
experiences they have. So yeah,
parents' job is to mess up our kids bad enough that they write a book about
been
us
doing
one
that
day.
with all three of mine. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So, your answer sort of talked about, like, you mentioned that can be malicious when it suits them. So, do you feel like there's a placing self before others that can lead to what we would refer to as evil or maliciousness?
Yeah, absolutely. We are very self-centered beings. Vanity and things like that come to play as well. One prof while I was taking some courses said something that really stuck with me. People want to be right, and they want to be liked.
Yeah.
Those two things. Nothing else matters. So if someone is right, or they think they're right, they're going to stick with that. And if they are liked, that matters to them. If one of those things is out of balance, they're off. Right? So if someone does not like someone else and they perceive that they are not liked, they are going to act out negatively towards those others.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
So if I can,
sometimes what people will do to be liked, right? Things that people are willing to do, or even willing to compromise things about themselves in order to, to ensure that they're either, liked or respected or whatever it is that they need to feel validated.
Yeah, and you just hit the nail on the head there is what are you going to give up to make sure that you feel validated inside? Yeah. And I think that's true in the AV industry and the IT industry. And as those two intersect, it's how can these institutes, how can these organizations, how can these companies address both so that both are liked and both have the right solution for the job as well. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. Every company has its own culture. And I was listening to another podcast, another AV podcast as well. And it was about companies that buy other companies to grow.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you miss out of that.
It was AV Week. You can call out AV Week for the...
Yeah, I'll call it AV Week. Yeah.
AV Nation's AV Week.
Yep. And so I was just listening to that on my drive-in this morning. And what was really cool about that was they said the one thing that happens is you give up your culture.
Yeah.
When companies grow and get larger and absorb others. The small culture, that small family feeling can disappear. So I think it's really, it behooves everybody to try and stay true to who you are, because the culture around you can change, but as long as you're not changing, you're good. You're in good shape.
And I think I love that you brought that up. Like this is a rabbit hole I could go down all day. Because it was Ifat that said that, who's one of my favorite people, and one of the main reason I'm bummed not to be at ISE this year is not to get to hang out with her. But it was an insight, because we think about building, in that case, a synergy in acquiring another place from a business or a supply chain side or something like that. Yeah. But don't acknowledge that what it can do to the people may have far more effect on the future business than whatever you did on paper to try and make it look like something that's a good move. And in this day and age, too, you can't even talk about that as just a corporate thing, because even in the world of higher ed, we have acquisitions taking place, right? The University of Arizona bought an entire private online institution to make it the University of Arizona Global Campus. And, the university, there's this talk of, I don't even know where they have, University of Arkansas buying out the, private University of Phoenix. So that same thing can happen to us in higher ed, as I think our friends in corporate have been dealing with for a long time. Yeah.
And, I think that's something that is going to change. Certainly in the United States, it is definitely changing quicker than it is in other parts of the world, where those mergers, acquisitions, we have more collaborative pathways, if you will, between our universities and colleges. So there is something that does change from campus to campus, and every campus has its own sort of identity and culture and things like that. But I was thinking about this as you were talking about that, and there's a reason we buy certain products as well from certain companies, and it's that brand loyalty that happens from the brand identity. But underneath that brand identity is the company culture and how those relationships. And you may switch companies because your sales rep has left and gone to a different company. And so, I think of those business development reps that move from company to company, and what changes with them. Well, sometimes they're moving companies for a different opportunity, but their customers are going with them.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really important that those relationships with people also are not tarnished in that whole way, right? So it's really important to me that you're kind of carrying yourself through and being true to yourself as well. So
yeah, the concept that people buy from people is often lost, especially in technology, where
absolutely
the specs of the new thing we think is what will drive the market, but in the
shiny
end,
object.
yeah, but in the end, like, and I talk about this with my team a ton, which is, it doesn't just when we're evaluating things, you have to evaluate everything top to bottom, right? The entire experience is what is the relative value to our students of us being on a first name basis with people from a company that we know we can call them on their cell phone when we need them, versus a company that we may be calling an 800 number. And
absolutely,
one thing may be more expensive than the other, but what is the value of that in us delivering, with reliability, the things we have to do?
Yeah, the one thing that I really look at with that is, who can I call on a Friday afternoon and say, this went down, do you have any spares in your warehouse?
Yeah.
And they get off the phone with me, they go out to the warehouse, they check and go, Chris, I will drive it out to you.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like, wow, that's the service I want. When I'm up a creek without the paddle, who's bringing me the paddle, right?
Yeah. To that point, it's not. Yeah. Who is a partner? That, what I'm saying. That's a partnership. That's not a customer. You know what I'm saying? Relationship. That's
Absolutely.
All right. See, we could do this all day. I love it. So remember, people buy from people.
I got to do some real work though, Ryan. You know that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so
people do buy from people.
Yeah. All right. Question. So, of your sense, sight, smell, taste, touch, which of your senses do you trust the most?
My sixth sense, my gut.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's
there
a
you
good
go.
Answer. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it's not right. If something feels a little greasy, a little dirty, stay away.
Okay.
If it's not the right, path to go down, trust yourself to know that it's not the right path. If it feels a little bit unsafe, maybe explore a bit and see if that is truly what you want to do, and go through that. Right. That's I think the biggest thing. In AV, we're always like, oh, it's sight or it's sound or it's smell or taste. But there's something to be said about that feeling you get from your gut in your stomach, if you will, when something doesn't feel right or something makes you feel a little, I'm not sure, right? Trust that feeling. Because it personally, it's never led me astray. Yeah, sure, I've gotten into some sticky situations before, but if something doesn't feel right, trust your intuition. Yeah,
I love that idea. Like, I may not know what it is, but my brain is throwing some cortisol out and telling me like there's some stress or there's some anxiety, some deep
fight or flight.
Human reaction is happening here, and that's been
Yeah,
honed over a long time.
Well, and it's that amygdala hijack, right? I can't even say that properly. Amygdala hijack.
Amygdala hijack.
It's your lizard brain saying, is that a friend or a foe?
Yeah.
Is that a threat to me? It's our survival instinct kicking in. So for me, it's, if I get that feeling, I am not running for the hills, but I'm protecting myself. I'm checking my six, if you will, right? So
Deal.
it's important. Yeah.
Okay, so we usually get the same last three questions for everybody, but I got a fourth one to throw in for you. So we'll
boy.
start.
Of course you do. Yeah. Throw it sideways on me. Go ahead.
No, I'm not going to mess with you. So first, what is a question that you wish people would ask, but nobody ever does?
I really don't know, Ryan.
That's okay.
Okay, so I would say,
but don't feel the need. So let's dive into that. So here's where my brain goes on that, which is you talked about being a hyper extrovert. You love talking with people and doing that. And is it possible that nothing comes to mind there because you're not waiting for people to ask you something? You are initiating conversations and getting out there and making sure that that you're driving the connections that are important to you and ensuring that the topics you'd like to discuss get discussed.
There is that. I think, kind of looping back to maybe what it was is, and putting yourself out there, being vulnerable a bit is really where the question is. What decisions have you made in the past that you regret? Right? So that's a big one, and you can go down a whole bunch of rabbit holes on that one. But I'd say one of those things would be leaving certain jobs before I felt my runway was up, if you will, right? Leaving and sort of seeking out better opportunities. There's certainly things there that, hindsight's 20/20. But there's something to be said about quitting before you think it's time to go, right?
Yeah, like you've left potential on the table because of an urge to
absolutely
move on to something new. But then in retrospect think, I could have achieved or I could have grown more or something like that.
Exactly, right? So those are the sort of things that I regretted in my past, especially in my career, but also in my personal life too, right? Like, I left Montreal when I got headhunted.
Yeah.
And moved down to Southern Ontario Southern Ontario. It's a lot warmer here than Montreal, so I don't regret that. But leaving Montreal was really hard, especially when I was 23. I'm in my mid 40s now, and 20 years have passed since I've moved down here, plus. But I do miss what I will call home. I miss the joie de vivre, the ability to work in both languages. That's something I truly miss. So any opportunity I have to use my French, I try to. I was translating some stuff last week for someone just on the side. So yeah. So that's the question, I guess. Roundabout way of saying, yeah.
But that is a very vulnerable question to go down. Like, let's talk about
it is.
My regrets is something that a lot of people don't want to share. So,
you don't want to admit that, back to right versus liked. You don't want to admit that you were ever wrong. Yeah. Right? It was just,
But it's not genuine.
Tough.
Yeah?
No, well,
okay, so
sometimes that's even more genuine coming out with all that stuff. So, yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not genuine to pretend that, you can't be your genuine self if there's not some level of vulnerability.
Exactly.
So that's the key part.
Yeah. Yep.
So you have an amazing way of leading question to question. So my added question in here was, as a fluent French speaker, if you were going to say, go to a classroom where something is completely failed and you have to go figure out what's going on, but it's in the French speaking area, what would it sound like to go in and ask a professor what's going on in their classroom?
So the people who are around here in Southern Ontario don't speak French. That's first and foremost. They don't speak French. But if that case did arise, and there have been some some classes where it's actually a French class, and I come in and, I've come
And you
to
can
help.
do it in French. Yes.
And I do it in French. And then the prof is like, oh, this is good because we've got someone who's a native speaker, if you will, who I can converse with and has probably, and it's like, wow, here we go. So
and now
what
it's
does
part
it look
of the
like?
lesson. It's not a
Exactly.
failure of class. This is a
Exactly.
learning enhancement that you've brought. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's also a way for me to, back to question number one, if you will, how do you get on someone's good side? How do you become the empath to them?
Yeah.
How do you link certain attributes that you share commonly to develop a rapport with someone? Right.
Yeah.
And that's it right there. You come in
Cool.
speaking French because it's a French lesson, and you empathize with what they're doing, and it's the same way you would in English or in Mandarin or in Korean. If you can speak any other languages, go to it. If you know someone does, go to it. Put them at ease, right? Share that common bond that you have with them, so that you put their mind at ease. So So to answer the question directly, you just do what you do.
Nice.
Just do what you do.
Yeah. Cool.
Be the best you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second to last question is, if people wanted to find you or get in contact, how would they do that?
So LinkedIn is best way to find me. Chris Hewitt. You'll see a whole bunch of initials after my name because, PMP or, CTS and things like that. LinkedIn's the best way to find me. Reach out. Please do connect. An extrovert always wants to connect with more people, so go for it. I'm sure I have over 2,000 people on my LinkedIn. But
Nice.
What's another 10?
Now I'm going to have
right?
to look and see how many you have, because I was only at
Bring it.
1,100 and something, so that's going to be tough to
Yeah.
catch. But all right,
Yeah.
I'm on it. And you never know. I would recommend everybody follow him on LinkedIn, because as in our previous episode, we talked about a post he made that really got me thinking and got me excited about stuff. So it's you want to follow Chris. You're going to see something that
Chat
means
GPT
something
is your
to
friend.
you.
Absolutely.
All
Yeah.
right, and then the final question, and it sounds like I don't even need to set it up the same way. The final question is, what is your drop the mic sign-off phrase?
Well, a little bit of story, because I know we're a little bit over time here, Ryan, but I'm going to give you a little story.
Please.
I was in scouting as a kid. In the U.S. it's Boy Scouts of America, in Canada it's Scouts Canada. But Baden Powell, who is the founder of Scouting, he had something that he imparted to Scouts, and that was leave the world a little bit better than you found it. And so everything I try to do is live by that same code, if you will, and it's leave the world better than I found it. So with that, I'm Chris Hewitt, and leave the world better than you found it.
Thank you for listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Join us again for next week's episode when we'll welcome a new guest who you'll want to hear from. We promise. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.